Thank you all for coming, and my name is AmyLee and my topic is rocks and minerals. I am 14 years old, my sister is Crystal, my mother is Lee, my dad is Thomas, and I have a dachshund, a hedgehog, and a hamster. I am a balanced learner, which means I'm visual, verbal, I use color-coded notes, visual and nonverbal, I make flashcards, tactical kinesthetic, I read my notes out loud, and I'm an auditory verbal learner, I study in groups. In technology, we took a career interest survey, and I found out that I scored highest in scientific and designing and building, which ties right into my GBD. Geology is the scientific study of rocks and minerals and the earth. And designing and building, rocks and minerals make up the earth as we know it. My learner profile traits are knowledgeable, caring, and communicator. And now back to my topic. Here is my display case that we made, full of my great-grandfather's collection of rocks and minerals. First, I would like to tell everybody the difference between rocks and minerals. A mineral is a pure, usually has a shape, does not contain fossils. The color is normally the same, but there are exceptions, and some have crystals. And the definition of a rock has one or more minerals inside of it. And there are three categories to an igneous rock means that the rock was crystallized in molten magma. A sedimentary rock is sediments come together and they set together to make a sedimentary rock. And metamorphic rock is the reheating and pressure of pre-existing rocks. All of these rocks do not have a chemical composition or an atomic structure. Before I start to classify the rocks, I will tell you the steps to classifying them. First, color, luster, streak, hardness, tonicity, magnetic, specific gravity, crystals, and cleavage and fracture. Okay. This is mineral W, right here, and I'm going to classify this for you. So first, I'm going to classify the color and luster. As you can see, the color of this rock is rainbow, and it is metallic for luster. Color and luster are the most obvious, but they are not the most reliable because other minerals and rocks may have the exact same color, but they are, of course, different. Next, I will be showing streak. This is a streak plate. When you you drag the rock onto this streak plate, the streak has a goldish, grayish black. Next is hardness. Hardness is how hard a mineral is. The hardness tools that I used is glass, a copper penny, and a nail. There are other classifications you can use, but these are the ones that came in my kit. The hardness of this mineral is an 8. So what you do is, when you put the glass on it, it doesn't make a streak. That means it is harder than a 7. Next is tonicity. This is a rock hammer. We use this to test cleavage, fracture, and tonicity. When we try to hit the rock with the hammer, the rock with the hammer, it took a couple tries to actually break it, and you had to use a lot of force. So the tonicity of this rock is very tough. To test magnetism, you get a magnet and you put it to the rock. Of course, this rock does not have magnetism. What I found most interesting about this collection is that I do not have any magnetic rocks. The next is specific gravity. Specific gravity is when you put the mineral or rock on a scale. We don't have a scale at the moment, but the rock before we broke it was a 29 grams, so it is probably has less of a weight. The next is crystals, of course. Okay. Cleavage and fracture, as I said before, this is a rock hammer, and you do test cleavage and fracture. Cleavage is if a rock breaks on a specific plane. This is mica, so this has specific or perfect one cleavage because it is on a plane, and if you would like to feel it, it's kind of smooth and soft, and so that's how you know it's on like a perfect plane. This rock does not have cleavage because it's very rocky and it's not on a specific plane. It has fracture, which a good example of fracture is mineral A. When we hit it with the hammer, it broke into small boxes. After we looked this up on the internet and did some more research on this rock, or mineral, we classified it as bornite, or also commonly known as the peacock or rainbow ore because of its color. Speaking of its color, when we broke it, we found out that the inside has a goldish color. We thought about it, and we now know that this, on the outside, it used to be gold. It oxidized, and that's what gives it its color. Now I'll be talking about rocks. This is a rose rock. My grandfather found it in Arkansas. It's also known as the desert rose. It is because this rock forms into layers and its edges are rounded to make it look like a rose blossom. This is amber. Amber is tree sap, hardened, and it can contain fossilized insects such as bees. We decided to, because this is very dark, we wanted to see maybe what the outside of it was or the inside of it was. This is a sand rock. This rock used to be just a pile of sand, probably at the beach, and a storm came by and lightning struck it. And it hardened, and the inside of it turned to glass. This is because when sand comes in contact with heat, it melts together and forms glass. We know that it is glass and not crystals because of its pattern. Glass doesn't really have a pattern. They're kind of just the molecules are all spread out, but a crystal has more of a structure to it. This is a gemstone. This is called lapis lazuli. My neighbor found it in Afghanistan when he went. This is very, very expensive, and 6,000 years ago they mined for it, and they ground it up and used it as paint. But it was very expensive and hard to find, so they started just manufacturing paint. And also inside of this gemstone there are pieces of pyrite, and my neighbor actually thought it was pieces of gold, but the other name for pyrite is fool's gold. This is a gemstone book that my grandfather got. It has 30 gemstones. It is very precious. The definition of a gemstone is a precious or semi-precious stone, one cut, polished, and used in a piece of jewelry. I made a lot of new discoveries when I was classifying these rocks and minerals. Letter E, which we now know as azurite, we tested it and we couldn't find any information of what it actually was. And so we sent an email to Dr. Amir at the University of Florida, and he helped us classify it. My connection, I've always had an interest for my collection, and like I said before, my great-grandfather was the person who originally started the collection, and he passed it down to my grandfather when he passed away, and then my grandfather passed it down to me. And I love researching about different topics, and researching about this, it just made it so much fun to do. And it's very special to me, and I hope I'll pass it down to the next generations. Also, I'm going to continue to classify these rocks. This rock, we still don't know what it is, but we recently discovered it in his box of minerals. We think that it might have pyrite, quartz, and maybe mica. And here are my credits. Thank you all for coming again, and I would also like to thank you guys for creating GBD, because next year I'm going to collegiate high school, and before you graduate you also have to do a capstone project, which is basically GBD, and I also wanted to do rocks and minerals on that, and hopefully I'll further my collection. Any questions?
Well, you certainly see the big picture there, and I hear Ms. Green echoing those thoughts as far as seeing where you will be, you personally will be with this project in a few years. For me as an observer, an unscientific observer, Ms. Green sees this differently, of course. I'll certainly look at rocks differently now. What type of realistic opportunity, career opportunities are there in the field of geology that might deal with rocks?
Well, I also thought, because my goal in life is to be an aerospace engineer, well, I also thought that maybe in the future we might need to use rocks and minerals to build some of the aircrafts or even cars or buildings that we have today.
Fantastic relation. Your attention to detail is going to make you very, very successful in whatever you choose to do. I just want to mention as an aside, there is a Tellus Museum in Cartersville, Georgia, that has one of the most extensive mineral displays in the world.
Oh, wow.
If you ever get a chance, it's northwest of Atlanta, about 30 or 40 miles right on the interstate. If you're ever going on I-75 north out of Atlanta and you see Tellus Museum, it is a wonderful resource in this field as far as minerals, and it's been there quite some time. Your report was very impressive.
Thank you.
Amy, I happen to know that you have a little bit more going on than the average 8th grader here. Can you share with the audience what you're doing in place of PE, perhaps?
I have been doing online school. I first did English 1 honors online, and I also did HOPE, which is physical education for 9th grade online.
Wow.
So you're taking a full 8th grade load, including high school credit courses, and then in your, in your spare time, you just happen to do a couple of other high school courses. Pretty nice.
I'd like to make a comment also. I'm AmyLee's mentor, Ms. Buchanan, and when we were studying rocks and minerals this year in Earth Science, she was generous enough to bring in the collection in it might as well have been a shoebox. In a box, a pile of rocks and minerals, and she said, these are my great-grandfather's. And I said, what are they doing in a shoebox? I said, oh my gosh, you have to do this for GBD. You have to explore this and see so that you can create a family heirloom. And so in my mind, I had something not quite as good as that. And I just want to say that a lot of times as mentors, we get ideas for you and we help you kind of envision what you want to do. And you have far exceeded my expectation, and that's rare. So congratulations on that. It's beautiful, and I'm excited for you and your family that you now have something to display that you can share with future generations. You did a beautiful job. Thank you.
And I'd like to add one thing too. She was hoping to use the Elmo, but my projector didn't have a double port for it, so she wouldn't have had to run back and forth. She was going to hold him underneath Elmo, but she got her exercise.
Amy, with the Miss Green trivia question of the day, but do you happen to know what large sheets of mica used to be used for?
No, I don't.
In South Dakota, where I'm from, you can go by hillsides and big pieces of mica are chipped off. And the early settlers who lived in the sod shacks didn't have window glass, so they would use mica.
Oh, that's cool.
Isn't that cool?